am very excited to hear Shane's. His name is Shane Davis. Again, he's Executive Director of Benchmark Family Service. I'm excited to hear his presentation. I am recording this webinar, and when we're done, it'll get put up on our YouTube channel, which you're going to see here in just a few minutes anyhow. So today's webinar is focusing on 4 things. There's a lot to cover. So I'm going to go ahead and jump right into it. The 4 topics are the idea portal. This is brand new. Support videos is brand new. Then additional fields have been around for a long time, and we're going to do a brief introduction to the accounting homepage, specifically the reports bar at the on the left side of the page, the bar menus. The first one is called reports, and we're going to be going over some of those reports. So let me go ahead and get this Word document out of the way, and we will get started. Okay, now we doing a release this weekend, and after the release, this menu here presently on Valeo, it just says help. All right, it's going to change. It's going to say help and support. A lot of you may not even have this menu because it's not turned on for you. I'm going to show you how to turn this on before I go into the new items. Now, some of you have links to our help desk. If you do, then again, the menu you see right now says help, and the only thing underneath there is that help desk. It's going to change to help and support, and there's going to be 3 options. Now, the help desk link is the same as it was. Then we have a new idea and support videos. Before I get into those, let me show you how you would actually turn those on. So if you go to your, if you don't have permission to do this, then you have to go to your system administrator. But find, your system administrator needs to find your user account, right? Look at the details of your user account. That opened on a new screen. Let me pull it over here. All right, so this is my setup in ChildTracks. They need to go to the menu bar on the left side, scroll down, and turn on help, new ideas and support video for those to be available after this weekend. Now, what they do, I'm going to start with the new idea link. So if a user clicks on that, we're really trying to engage all our partners for ideas. We've always done that, but we're trying to make it a lot easier to collect ideas from our partners on improvements to ChildTracks, new features, new functionality, and improvement of existing features. So we use a product. I'm going to go ahead and click on this, pull it over, and get it open in a new window. We use a product called AHA, A-H-A. And in AHA, we use it to track all our development items. Well, in that, they have an ideas portal. And it just came out, and we jumped on it. We want to use it. And this is the idea portal. So if you click on that link on ChildTracks, it says ideas. It's going to take you here. All right. Now, when you first come in here, notice how this already knows who I am. It has my personal email address here. That's only because I was on it a few minutes ago. If I hadn't been on this today when I first came to this, it would not know who I am. Now, this page allows you to do quite a few things. It's going to allow you to review any ideas that we have. All right. Right now, we have quite a few of them. We have 6 pages of them. But so you can review these. All right. So if you wanted to see what this idea was about, just click on that person H, and it's going to tell you what the idea is. And you can also vote on these ideas, and you can vote up to 2 times. So if this is something that you think is really, really, really important to you, give it 2 votes. If it's something you say, yeah, this would be nice to have, give it a vote. All right. These votes are going to become very, very important to us because we don't want to just drive everything we do development wise. There's things we got to do that we know, but we would really like to have input from you guys. And this portal is a nice, easy way to know what the important items are to you all. So again, the first thing it allows you to do is look at all the ideas out there. And if you want to vote on one, you can vote on it. The second thing it allows you to, well, before I go into the second thing, let's just look. You can look at these ideas by any of these different ways. So if you do recent, these are the ones that have recently been added. Trending, these are the ones that people are looking at. Then popular are the ones that have the highest votes. Okay. Now, if you want to submit an idea, big old button here says add a new idea. Just click on that idea, add a new idea button, and then you can give it a brief description, okay? But make these descriptions good so that we can tell, you know, what area the systems is about. But then down here in the more details narrative box, really get detailed on what you're talking about. All right, because what it can do, if you get real detailed, it's going to save us from having to contact you to get clarification. All right, and the last thing we want to do is be a thorn in your side because we know you're all busy and don't have a lot of time. Now, if I hadn't been on here today, right down here would also be a box for me to enter my email address. And please, if you submit an idea, put your email address in there so we can actually, you know, follow up with you if we need clarification or anything. So go ahead and fill that out. Again, if you haven't been here today, then you enter your email address and hit share idea. And that's how simple it is to enter an idea. Now, if you forgot to say something, so here's the new idea you just created, and it will automatically vote for it from yourself when you add it. If you want to add a follow-up comment, you can just go ahead and click on this post comment, and it will also add the comment to this. Now, to get back to the home page of where you were at when you first came, just click on that home button up there. And again, if you want to add a comment to an existing idea, there is a place for you to add a comment. Now, again, if you haven't been on here yet and entered your email address, there would also be an email address field. So that is the idea portal. We're really, really excited. It's a quick, easy way for you guys to submit ideas to us. Again, you would have to have that turned on for your user account. Just go through your system administrator to get that turned on. Okay, the second item we want to look at is support videos. We used to do a lot of training manual stuff, but in today's world, everything changes so fast. We'd spend hours and hours writing training manuals, and 4 weeks later, they were obsolete. So we quit doing that. We're starting to do more and more stuff on videos, all right? Well, that link on Child Tracks to support videos brings you to the Valeo playlist. All right, right now there's 66 videos here. All right, and the newest videos are always at the top, with the oldest always being at the bottom. And the way we name them, we give what it's about, and then what product, because we have more than one product, and then the month and year that we release this video. Right now, we're getting ready to do a release this weekend. Hopefully, you guys have been looking into the new release we're getting ready to do. So these are the two videos about that release. Okay, this webinar, as soon as I get it converted into a usable format, it'll be sitting right above this generate special payment tools when we get it loaded up to our YouTube channel. Right, so there's great videos on here. Highly recommend if you have 15-20 minutes in your day, just come here and watch one of them. It tells you over here on the right side how long the videos are. So that's the second topic that I wanted to cover. Those were going to be real quick because now things are going to slow down a little bit. So the next item I'm going to cover today on this webinar is additional fields. Now, additional fields are something that really, really makes Child Tracks unique, right? So Child Tracks has what's called standard fields. These are fields that Child Tracks was built around from day one, right? They're all called standard fields. We can't rename them. You know, a lot of times we can't hide them on the screens and stuff like that. Well, additional fields is where you guys can go in and add more fields to the different things you're looking at on Child Tracks. Now, additional fields are not supported everywhere on Child Tracks, but they are supported in many places. Now, for the purpose of today, I'm only focusing on 5 areas for additional fields. I'm looking at additional fields on the parent details page, looking at additional fields on the home details page. I'm going to be looking at additional fields on the client demographic page. I'm going to be looking at additional fields on the persons involved with homes page, the person details page, and then also on staff, right? So to get to the additional fields, you got to go to the table maintenance page, right? And the table maintenance page is under System Administrator, Table Maintenance. And again, if you don't have access to this, then you need to be talking to your System Administrator to get access. Now, I told you there's 5 areas we're going to focus on today. These are not the only areas on Child Tracks you can do additional fields. Now, 2 of them are right here on this page. And actually, before I get to those, this weekend we're also releasing a beta version of this table maintenance page, and it's going to be called the system maintenance page. I do want to introduce it real quick. So after this weekend, you'll have a link right at the top of this page to go to the system maintenance page. If you click on that, it will open a new window or a new tab, depending on how your browser is set up. And this is the new page. So we've categorized all those links on that table maintenance page into these categories. You can also search. If you know what you're looking for, you can actually come in here and just search. So if you know it's something to do with referrals, just start typing referral, and this list will custom define to what you're typing. So that's just a brief introduction to this beta page of the table maintenance page. All right, now there are 5 areas that we're covering today for additional fields. 2 of them are just on this page itself. All right, here's the person additional fields. These are persons. When you see person right now on Child Tracks, it just means other people associated with foster home. They could be alternate caregivers, frequent visitors, babysitters, biological children. Right now, the second area that's on this main page is the client additional fields. Unfortunately, on here it's titled youth additional fields. On the new page, it is titled client additional fields. Right, so to do any of those 2, you would come here to do those. Now, I'm only going to focus on one. I'm going to focus on parent additional fields. But the parent additional fields, the home additional fields, and staff additional fields are hidden under the branch office. So these can be different by branch. So what you do for the Dayton branch here on the screen, you could do something totally different for the Columbus branch, and then something totally different for the Canton branch. Okay, now for the purpose of this webinar, I'm going to be setting up things under Canton, but when we go to look at them on a screen, I'm going to be using the Lexington foster parent, because I have all those all set up already, and they're all fully working, and everything I need to do data-wise is done for the Lexington parent. Now, the 3 areas that you can set up at a branch level, again, are foster home additional fields, foster parent additional fields, and user additional fields. So this is what we're focusing on, these 3 and the 2 on that table maintenance page, which right now says youth additional fields and person additional fields. So let's go ahead and click. If I want to set up additional fields on my foster parent details page, I click this button. It's going to bring me to the setup screen. All right, now just ignore this one. Somebody already added one. This is the actual configuration screen. Let me refresh this again. This will be a list. This is going to grow as we start adding fields. So let's go ahead and add a field. I'm going to call them type, and then tell you the type it is in the title of the field. So what I'm getting ready to do, I'm getting ready to add the title for an additional field called type dash checkbox. Once I click the add, now it's sitting there. Okay, let me look at something on this one real fast. Okay, good. Now, once you add it, now you need to click on it and set it up. All right. Now, I'm going to go over every one of these fields somewhat in detail, so hopefully when you're done with this, if you can't remember, you can go back to our YouTube channel and actually watch it again, so that you guys can have the freedom to set these fields up on the fly. Now, the display order field is the first field you want to set up. Now, you can label these, and all this display order field does is say, this is the order on the screen I want to see them. Right? You could start with 1, go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. I don't recommend that. What we recommend, or not just me, my whole team recommends, is you either step them in 5 in division or segments of 5 or 10. And what I mean by that, if you notice when I looked at this one, that display order was 10. So what I would do, if I'm configuring this for you, I would set this to 20. All right. Now the reason you want to stagger these, so let's say you set up 10 additional fields today. And let's say you labeled them or display ordered them 1 through 10. Well, 6 months from now, if you want to add something and you want to put it in the 5th position, now you got to reorder all those ones underneath it. You got to move them up one to get one in the 5th position. But if you do it by 5, 10, 15, 20, or 10, 20, 30, 40, then 6 months from now, and you wanted one in that 5th position, you could enter it as 55, and it would show up under after that fifth one. So it's, again, your call. I highly recommend you don't just sequentially 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 do that. Okay, so that's the first field. The next two fields are, you can set these fields up to be in columns on the screen. So like if I set this up to column number 1 in a total of 2 columns per row, basically what it will show on the screen is something like this here. So this part of the screen is really split into 2 columns. In the first column we put the start date, in the second column we put the end date. So when you set up this field, it would say 1 of 2. When you set up this field, it would say 2 of 2. Now we can only do 3 columns because we don't know, we can't mandate what size monitors everybody has. So you know, we only go up to 3 columns to make sure we don't run out of screen width when we're building that page. So that's what the next 2 fields are about. Now the next field is a type. All right. Now there's many types of different additional fields. We're actually going to set up one for most of these. The only 2 we're not is signature line and client age. I will tell you what those are, but I'm not going to set those up on a parent details page because there's really no point to do that. So the very first type we're going to set up is a checkbox. All right. Now, this next field says screen size. This is only relevant to the type of text box, all right? And you'll see the relevance when we set up a text box. All right, so this type is a checkbox. So the next row, descriptor location, you have 2 options here. You have above and beside, all right? Above means that the title, which is here, would be above the field that you actually are doing, all right? Beside, if that was set to beside, then this date field in this calendar picker would be to the right of the start date title. Okay, so it's just where do you want the description in regards to the field that you're setting up. Now the next 2 windows are very, very unique. You can give these fields one description on a screen, and you can give it a different description on a printable report, or they could be the same. All right. So for this particular one, if we was to make a printable report of this, where this field is showing, the screen will say text checkbox. If this said, then when you printed a report, what you would see on the report would be type checkbox XYZ. So they can be different or they can be the same. Now the very next field though is a toggle switch whether or not this will be shown on the printable report or not. And the reason that's there, because we have some other types here, like this paragraph field. You literally can fill these screens with instructions for your staff. All right, so if you maybe wanted to put instructions on the screen, you're going to use this type of additional field, put in your instructions down here. If you didn't want those instructions to show up on a printable report, then you would uncheck that. Okay. Okay, the next field we'll get into in a little bit is if your type is called a dynamic field, then this window is used to pick what that dynamic field is. Real quickly, dynamic fields is a piece of information that you're storing somewhere else in Child Tracks, and all you want to do is show it here. So you can actually set the system to go find that information and show it on the screen when you're looking at the parent details page. Then this next field is used for these types of additional fields, and we'll see how they're used here shortly. So the last 2 fields for the type of additional field is a start date and an end date. All right. Again, at what date, this start date means what date does the system start showing this on the screen. So if I leave that set at 2/8/2019, it'll show up today as soon as we're done. If I set that to 2/9/2019, it would not show up till tomorrow. But let's say this field, you've been using it for 3 years and you absolutely don't want to use it anymore. Then you could put an end date. So if I put March 1st, 2019 on here, come March 1st, 2019, this field would no longer show up. It doesn't lose all the history that you've captured for the 3 years that it was there. If you want to see that history, then you can come back in here, turn that off, or remove that end date, hit update, go look at the information, and then you could turn it back off later. So. And then the last part of this setup screen, if you're doing drop lists or multiple checkbox, this is where you define the values for those. And you'll see me use that here shortly also. So let's go ahead and update this, and that is a checkbox. The next field would be a date field. So let's add that. Again, that's your first step. Now you need to set the display order. Now that went to 12 because last time I did something, it came up to 11. I'll show you a way to get around that here in just a second. So this one, you're just going to set the date. You don't have to do nothing else. As long as your date here is correct, you can just come up here and update that. Now, if you wanted to change the description, you would change it. If you don't want to show it on printable report, you would uncheck that. So you're going to kind of just walk down here. I'm not going to do all these. I'm going to do the rest of these that I do. I'm going to, it's just so I can show you the different parts of this screen that you have to use. A digital signature, I'm going to skip. A document upload, I'm going to skip. But we'll go look at a drop list. You're going to see all these fields. When we go look at that Lexington parent, you're going to see every field on here except for signature line and client age. But again, I will explain those, and they're very clear, very easy to understand. So now the next one we're going to actually set up is called a drop list. So let's go ahead and add that. And let's get it configured. So this one's going to be 40. Let's set the type to drop list. All right, everything else looks good. Let me update that. Now, a drop list is a pick list. So what values do you need to pick? This is where you add those values. Okay, so now you just set up a drop list. Again, a drop list is like this here. This is a drop list. Now, the way I have this set up, if this was the field I just set up, then you would see value 1, value 2, and value 3 there. Okay, so that's how you set up a drop list. The next one we really want to look at is a dynamic field. So let's look at a dynamic field real fast. So let's click on this. This will become 50. The type is a dynamic field. Now, what value do I want to show? So this is where this window here comes into play, is when you set that dynamic field. So for this type of additional field, here's some of the options we have. So we can go in there and we can pull out primary parent email and home details. That won't work here. We're at a parent level. So foster parent employment. Here we go. Foster parent requirements and parent details. So that will work here. So let's go ahead and update that. All right. So that's a dynamic field. Let me refresh this so those get back in the order. Once you refresh this, these will actually resort by the sort order that you assign them. Okay. So that's a dynamic field. And again, you'll see all these in operation when we go look at Lexington foster parent. Now, the next type of field is an email field. Let me show you what this does. Let me click on that. We'll set this to email. Everything's good. Now, look at these instructions here for this field. If this is an email field, the email rule as established by the system administrator, that's what you want to put here. And I set up an email rule called webinar. All right. So I'll go ahead and put that in there, hit update, and I just set up an email field. Now, I forgot to change the display order on that. Notice how that went to 51 because the last one it has here is 50. So this is going to default to whatever this was plus 1. So we want to change that to 60, update it again. Now, if you were doing a big long list of additional fields, what I would recommend you do at this point is click this preview additional field button, all right? Because it's going to show you what you've done so far. All right, that document upload button was already sitting there. Here's that text box or checkbox. Here's that date field. Here's that drop list with those 3 values. Here's the dynamic field. all right, that's particular. We're not on a parent, so it doesn't know what to show there because we're in a test thing. And then here's that email field. Now, if you come in here and do test, click that button, then if you're looking at a real parent, it would actually shoot off an email to whoever's defined with that email role called webinar. Okay, let's keep going. And the reason I brought that up about this preview is check them as you go along. You can save yourself a lot of headache later on. So the next field we want to do is a header field. Change that. Sort order 70. Header. Hit update. I do want to show you this one real fast, so we're going to go ahead and preview again. A header is nothing more than a black line across the page with whatever you put in that screen description. Okay, so it's a way to break these pages up so that they don't just run on and on and on. So that's a header field. Hyperlink field. This one's really good. So if you're doing a hyperlink field, then you need to enter a hyperlink. I'm copying this off my other screen right now. You need to enter the link to whatever you're hyperlinking to in this notes field. All right. So what will happen on the screen, this happens to be a hyperlink to WebMD. So when you're looking at parent details, there's a link right on that parent details page that if you click on it, it will open in a new tab or a new window, again, based on your browser, and actually take you to WebMD. Okay. So let's go ahead and update that. I need to set the type to hyperlink. Update that, and that's good. And then let's look at a couple more. Type. So multi-checkbox. Show you what these are. Up. Would help if I clicked on the actual value. With a drop list, you can only pick one value. All right, from a drop list, you can't pick multiple values. With a multi-checklist, it allows you to click multiple values. So on a multi-checkbox, you can come in here and pick two values. Where in a drop list, you can only pick one. So that's the difference between those. A paragraph, this is very, very handy. I'm not going to set any more up. I'm just going to talk them real fast because we're kind of getting short on time, and I want to be able to switch that like some parent. A paragraph, this is really nice. So this one, you can actually fill this window full of instructions and information, and you can set it to not show on a printable report. So what that means is these screens that your staff are using over and over and over, if you're seeing particular problems on the use of how you want child tracks to be used in certain areas, you can add instructions to the screens, okay? And there's no limit on how many characters. Well, there is a limit, but it's pretty high. I mean, probably a page and a half in instructions will fit in this. So you can actually tell them for the next three fields below, here's how we want you using these fields. All right. So it's very, very handy. It's a good way to clean up problems that your agency may be experiencing with your staff in certain areas of the system as far as data entry. So next thing is signature line. That simply is on a printable report. if you want 3 places for signatures, a case manager, supervisor, and agency administrator. You can set up a field called signature lines, put in here case manager, hit return, put in supervisor, hit return, put agency administrator. Then when somebody prints that printable report, there will be 3 signature lines. Off to the right is a line for the date that they signed the document. And underneath each line would say case manager, under the next line would say supervisor, next line system administrator. Next line, signature capture, is where you can capture signatures. The next 2 are the ones we need to take a minute with. Text box. Now, this field, if you pick text box, this field comes into play. You can say what size of text box. So if you pick 25, it's a size of about this one down here at the bottom. If you pick 50, then it's about this big. 7,000 is this big. 1,000 is just a little smaller than that, and then 200 is about half that size. But these are character counts. Okay, so if you have a text box and you set 7,000, that means the maximum amount of characters that box will take is 7,000 characters. Okay. Now, the last type is client age. So these are more about clients. If you have screens where you want to see the client's current age on that screen, how old they are today, then you set up an additional field, set the type of client age, and it will show that on the screen. Obviously, if you have that clicked, then if you print a report, it will show up on the printable report too. So that's kind of how you set all this up. Now let's go look at a Lexington parent that I have all this set up on. And you can see what these all look like. Okay, so this is the page for Norman Anderson. Again, we were just adding additional fields to the parent details page. So here's the parent detail page link. So if we look down here under notes, these are every type except the client age, because Norman's not a client, so it's not going to show a client age for Norman. And I don't have the signature lines because this is not a printable report type thing. But I did set some up with the 3 column setup. So here's when I set up these 3 additional fields. When I set this one up, I said column 1 of 3, this one 2 of 3, that one 3 of 3. Now what's important, if you're doing these columns, those sort orders, these 3 have to be one after another. You can't have this sort order 5, this one 3, that one 4, and that one 6. All right, because it's going to try to go to this one after it does the type date field, and then the system's not going to know what to do because this ain't set to 3 of 3. That one, that's sort order 6. So they need to be consecutive in your sort orders if you're doing columns. All right, so again, a checkbox, a date field, drop list. If you're doing digital signatures, which if you guys are not, I highly recommend you look into that. It's a quick, easy way for your staff to digitally sign documents. If you use this and they need to sign something, all they have to do is enter their 4-digit PIN. Right? Now, this particular one, though, if you look, this is a Lexington parent. Right now, I'm not associated with the Lexington branch, so it's not even going to give me the option to digitally sign this. We have a lot of logic built into our digital signatures. So the next type of field I set up on here is a document upload. The next one's a dynamic field. I said, show me all the parent requirements. Right now, this particular parent don't have any turned on, but if Norman did, then you would see the status of all their parent requirements right on this screen. Last completed date, next due date. This is that email field again. You can come in here, type a message, hit email. It's going to shoot that email off. Now, what's important is none of that's saved. All right, we don't save those in the system, but it is a quick, easy way. If you have some screens where people need to email somebody quickly, like a job type title person, then set up email fields on these forms. Here's that header field. See how it kind of breaks that page up so it doesn't just run on. Then here's that link to WebMD. Watch what happens when I click on that. It takes you right out to WebMD. It opens in a new tab. So when you're done with WebMD, just close that and you're right back to that page. Here's the multiple checklist. Here's a 1,000 character text box. 7,000 character text box. Here's a paragraph field where you can load this screen up with instructions or helpful hints or stuff like that. Then you have the signature capture field. And again, the two that are on, I didn't set up, are signature lines and client age. If those were set up and this was a client, then you would see client current age here, 21, 18, whatever that is. And then if it was on something that's a printable report, when you click on printable report, you would see those signature lines. So that's all I have on additional fields. Well, on the main topic of these additional fields, I do want to go back to the table maintenance page real quick. Just show you a couple other things. If you want to add additional fields to your referrals, there's a link down here, referral additional fields. So some of the other additional field places you can do on ChildTracks, if you're using authorizations, you want to add additional fields to authorizations, you can get to them from this table maintenance. If it's in the client care module, one of your client care items, if it's a contact type, additional field on the contact screens, or behavior logs, those are a little more complicated. If it's additional field on a parent requirement, a home requirement, a staff requirement, a person requirement, they're a little more tricky. I'm going to be doing webinars on those, but they're a little more involved. When I do a webinar on those, it'll probably be that single topic for that webinar, because it'll take about an hour to truly go through those. So, but anywhere you see additional fields on here, then that's what I just showed you. Okay, the last topic for today, and before I get into this last topic, I do want to say real quick why it's fresh on my mind. If there's topics you want me to cover on these Did You Know webinars, send me an email. Let me know. I'm Paul. I think most of you know me, Paul Hanrahan. Just shoot me an email. Let me know what you would like to have us consider for these Did You Know webinars, because we're only doing them for you guys, not for yourself, or not for ourselves. So, okay, the last thing I want to cover is a brief introduction to the accounting homepage. All right, to get to the accounting homepage, if it's not your start page, you come down here to billing on the administrative menu. If you don't have that, then again, your system administrator needs to turn it on. And the very top thing here says accounting home. Okay, now I wish we had more time to go through all these. I've hit some of these on some of the other webinars, but I'm going to be making these a huge focus as we go forward this year with our webinars. I want to try to address this at least every other webinar, something on this page. The accounting tools on ChildTracks are really phenomenal. We spend a lot of time and a lot of money building these tools, so I really want to highlight this and try to get more of our partners to start using some of this financial stuff. So with that being said, let me go down through these. Some of these I've covered on other webinars. Some of them I've covered in trainings. But anyhow, I'm just going to go down each one by one. Placement activity by date. This used to be probably one of the more popular reports on ChildTracks. So I'm going to run this for 2018. Okay, so you have a date range filter, you have a program filter, and this works for all three programs. Okay, branch, you can do your default branch. If you leave it a default and you don't know what branch that is, just look right up here in this top right corner. It says, "Greetings, Paul Hanrahan. You're in the Dayton branch." So if I leave that default, it's going to do Dayton. Okay, but I could run this for all. I could run it for a state or any of the other branches I'm associated with. Now, if I'm not associated with a branch in Kentucky, then Kentucky wouldn't be here. All right. So this list depends on your associations in ChildTracks. You can run it for a single payer. All right. If you want to do Boone County DCBS, you could pick Boone County DCBS off of there, and it would only run it on kids from Boone County DCBS. And then also we have the CSV. This is going to be the only time I check the CSV button as I show you the rest of the reports. So really get a handle on what this does for you. It's a really nice tool. So let's go ahead and do the search. And the system's going to return a bunch of results. All right, so I'm going to step through, and for foster care, there's 5 sections. For residential and services, there's only 2. The first 2, whether you're doing any of those programs, are the same. It's placements is the first one. So it's going to list every kid that was newly placed in your agency. All right, you add a referral, you place the kid during this date range. All right, it has a bunch of information here about the kid. Now, when I open up the spreadsheet, I'm going to show you a couple tricks real fast. So here's Steve Garvey. I do want to take a second and just explain the difference between these two rows. This place 1/5/2018 for 194 days, that's for their current foster home. All right. Now this particular kid, these are the same. So this kid's only been in one home. All right. Let me find a kid where they're different. Here's one that's different. So this one, the placement in their current home was 156 days, but they've been with your agency for a total of 186 days. All right. So every kid placed during that date range that matches your criteria up here is listed here. You have a total 20 placements for 2018. The next section is discharges made between that date range. All right. So again, you have some information. I forgot to show you the different columns up top. The first column up top in here is the caseworker. Next one's the foster home, and these are links. Link to the kid, link to the home. For the discharge section, we add two columns here. Was it a favorable discharge or unfavorable, and what was the reason? All right, and then the last column is the same as the top, and that's branch. So again, you can come down here, and you had 19 discharges during that period, 17 favorable, 2 unfavorable. Now, also during that period, for foster care, you have 3 more sections. If you're doing residential or services, that's it. Okay. For foster care, you have 3 more. This is movements. The next section is movements. So if you look at this first kid in the John Doe home, they were placed on 1/1/2018. They've been in the John Doe home for 403 days. The home they were in before John Doe was the Casey Kasem home. All right. Now, this does not relate to Casey Kasem. It could if that was the only other home they were in. This is your agency. This child was placed with you in 2015. They've been in care for 1,403 days. Okay. Again, you had 15 movements during that time period. These are the respites that happened during that time period. And then these are the respite-only placements. Now let's go ahead and click on this CSV button. Open it up in Excel. I'll show you a couple tricks real quick. For sure, one trick. I gotta speed up a little bit. So I'll probably just show you one trick in this. It's very simple. If you want to know on this kids that was placed in 2018, if you want to know what their average length of stay was, just come right here. So this is the placement section. Okay, go back over here. It tells you right here placements, discharges, so on and so forth. But you come to this column, total days in care, just hit equals. All right, you can do it this way, equals. Right up here, pick, not sum, sorry. Hit this little arrow. Let me get equals back down here. Equals average, right? Grab those cells. Press enter. I missed the bottom cell, but your average length of stay was 158 days for those kids that came in care in 2018. There's an easier way to do this if you don't need it in a way like that. If you just highlight those down here at the bottom, it'll actually tell you also. Now, the reason these are different, when I did this one, I didn't grab that bottom row there. But your average length of stay for those kids, if you do it this way, is 153.45. You can do that with many other things. If you want to do it by race, you can sort it by race. You know, whatever's on here, if you want to do it by gender, you have many different options once it's in Excel to do different type of calculations like that. And again, this is going to be the only time I check that box and open up the spreadsheet. Everything else I'm getting ready to show you pretty much has that option. Okay, so that was placement activity to date. That is also under this reports menu right there, placement activity by date. The next one is current placements. If you come in here, again, this branch menu is going to be based off of your connections for the branches in your setup. You can do it by payer, you can do it by program. Again, you can write CSV. Now, this unique client only, that really is for our partners that do services, because their clients can be receiving more than one service, and they might only want to see them here once. All right. So if you hit search, this report just goes out and finds everybody that is currently placed today. All right. It's very straightforward, very simple. Again, you have the CSV option where you can get this information in Excel. If somebody calls you and say, hey, can you tell me what your average length of stay for your currently placed kids are? Come here, write CSV, open in Excel, go to that column, just highlight that column, and down at the bottom it tells you, or insert your formula. So it's that simple. Okay, next one, level of care, compare days. This is the next two I'm getting ready to show you are foster care only. For our residential and services customers, don't let that concern you, because there's another, the newest report of this, which we'll be going over here in a minute, does all programs. This was like one of the original complex reports we did on Child Tracks many years ago, and at that point we only had foster care customers. So put in your date range. Again, you have the other filter options, and again, you have the right CSV function. Now, what the system is going out and doing is finding any kid, and this is an important piece to listen to. It's going out through this date range, is finding any kid that had a level of care assigned to them during that date range. So it starts at a level of care. Right? And so right here, you see Jared Anderson, level of care basic. And then what the system does, it goes through the placement records, figures out how many days of care Jared was in care during this year, during that period. It looks at invoice records and actually gives you invoicing amounts that happened. And it looks at home payment records. Okay. And it'll find every kid that had a level of care defined during that period. Now, this report serves many purposes. All right. It can. First of all, for every kid, we do comparisons on these values, all right? If we see something that doesn't make any sense, we highlight it red, all right? So you look, for Brutus Buckeye fan, his home payments totaled 365 days. His invoice records totaled 369 days. Now, if you're in here with the accounting side of this, you can look at this right here and know exactly why this is 4 days over. These dates are within this date range, right? So if I was guessing, I would say this one should have ended on 5/21. Somebody got in there and messed it up and didn't end it on 5/21. They entered it on 5/25. So it does error checking all the way down the page. Then at the bottom, it totals everything. So if you want to know your census days by level of care, this breaks it down by level of care. So for level 1B, you provided 98 days of care during that period. For level 2, 813. For a basic kid, 4,244 days. For TFC 3, 1,795. And then you have a grand total of census days. On this column, it's going to break down your invoicing by payer. So you know during that period, you invoice Zeph's the payer Zeph for $61,000. This foster care super agency, $42,000. And then at the bottom of that, it has totals for what you did on the invoicing. Then over here, it's going to break down the home payments and your total home payments. So it has many purposes it can be used for. And again, you can pull this information into an Excel spreadsheet and do many things with it. Okay, that was level of care. This one, we built this early on, and it was meant to make sure that for every kid that had a level of care, they also had, let me pick Ohio here, an associated, some type of invoice record. All right. So it goes out, it finds the kids with the level of care during that period. It's very similar to this one. It's just not as much detail. So this one can be used quickly to find where there's a problem. So the level of care system in here for this grant, Belfour, says there's 365 days of care. Well, the invoicing module has no days of care. So you haven't invoiced nothing for this kid. So you can quickly go out and find out what's wrong with these records. And again, anything that doesn't match these two columns is highlighted red. This was always built as a quick data entry or a data testing tool. That's why it's on this page too. Now, this next tool is one of my favorite on Child Tracks. Right now, it only works with foster care. It only works with daily per diems, all right? We are going to be changing that. It's going to work in any program, and it will work with monthly rates also. But let me show you what it is. They can have multiple purposes too. So I'm going to come in here, branch date, and I'm going to say all in branch, okay? Now, you don't have to. First time I run it, I'm just going to say any. So let me show you this. So it's going to go out and it's going to find by payer all the different rate structures you have on your active placement or any placements in January. Now, if I say all in branch, it skips the payer part. It still goes out and finds all the different rate structures. So one of the first functions of this tool, you guys know, for most of you, you have maybe 4 or 5 different rate structures where you invoice this amount and pay home this amount, invoice. If you're not foster care, when we get this working on residential and services, you invoice this amount, you invoice this. This is a way to make sure that somebody didn't, when they entered the child, they didn't type 63 and 64 instead of 64, right? So you have what you're invoicing, what you're paying at home, how many kids are at that structure, right? So like this one with 11, you have 11 clients where you invoice $82.94 and you're paying at home $50. Now let me change this to February real fast and just hit that search button again. And I can kind of give you the second idea on this. So if you're truly a finance person, it's early in February. We're only 8 days into February. If you want to see what your month's going to look like, and when we fix this for the other programs and monthly rates, I'm also going to have totals added down here in these 2 columns. All right. For sure, these 2 columns, but probably some other ones too. So you want to know your executive director's concerned, hey, are we going to have enough money at the end of the month to pay everything? Where you're going to be able to say, if everything stays the way it is right now, we're tracking towards $1.2 million in invoicing, and we're looking at about $680,000 in foster home payments. If you're a residential center, you're just going to be able to say, well, the way it sits right now, we're looking at $1.2 million in invoicing. Same way with services if you're doing daily or monthly rates and services. So it's a really, really nice report that can be used for multiple things. Those were just 2 of the quick things I wanted to point out to you. I'm keep looking back at the clock to try to make sure I leave time for conversation. The next one, billing comparison. This is very similar to the level of care compare days. We built this one to overcome some of the issues with level care compare days. And obviously one of them would be the 3 programs. Well, this works in all right? No matter if you're residential, foster care services, it works. Let me go ahead and put in a date range here. Again, I'm not going to write to CSV. You kind of see the filters are the same. You can run this for one payer at a time or run it for everybody at a time. Hit search. Now, if you remember when I did the level care compare days, I said if a kid didn't have a level of care, they won't be on here. This negates that, all right? If the kid has any of these records, this is the placement records. This is the home payment records. Of course, you wouldn't see home payment if you're doing residential or services. This is the invoice record, and this is level care. So if any kid has any one of these 4 that match this search criteria, they're going to show up on this report. And again, if things ain't making sense, we highlight it yellow or highlight it red. So, as you're scrolling down here to get to the juicy stuff at the bottom, if you see red, you need to, look at that. But then down at the bottom of this report, and again, that right CSV is an option. Down at the bottom, again, we total all this stuff. So here's your census by level of care. Here's your census by invoice rate, home payment rates, and then your placement census. So all on one report. This is one of my personal favorite reports on ChildTrack. When I troubleshoot any problems for somebody in regards to placements, I always start here. I run this, and I look for red. Okay, now billing home. This was one of our original reports to help with financial stuff, but we have people when they get something and they're used to it, they don't want us to take it away. So this you can run by month and year, and then if you're multi-branch, it's going to show you all your branches, and they'll have overall statistics. So let's look at each statistic. So for this Dayton branch, for the number of placements, now placement is, the kid was in this home the whole month. That's one placement. Kid was in this home, he was in a respite here, and we moved him to a new home here in that month. That would be 3 individual placements, all right? It's one placement cycle, but that's 3 placements. So for that month, for Dayton, they had 43 placements. They had 2 respite-only placements. They had no respites. They had no discharges, no movements. Current at the end of the period was 41 kids, which makes sense. If there was respite-only placements, they're going to be gone. So subtract those from 43, you have 41 left. These are the number of foster homes getting a check that had kids placed. If you have foster homes getting a check that didn't have kids placed, this would have a value, and it would be blue. And then this is the total number of clients that was placed during that period. These are all links. If you click on that, here's a list of that data that's behind it, okay? We left this on the system because everybody that was used to this, they still like it. Right here, we break down who you're invoicing by branch, and then this section here breaks down invoicing just by payer. Okay, then there's some error checking sections down here for the sake of time, because I am running out of time quickly. You can look at that page if you want. We don't have to look at report date range start page. I kind of went over some of that in one of the other webinars, and I'll be going back to that in future webinars too. This one is very important. Billing error check. If you're using child tracks to do any of your invoicing, if you're foster care doing your invoicing, paying homes, if you're residential invoicing, services invoicing, run this before you invoice. All right. We built this page because, as we would help people fix their invoicing or foster home payment stuff, we'd always keep track of what was going on. This page goes out and looks for a lot of the common stuff we've seen. Okay, so for instance, this particular one, I'll only focus on this one for the sake of time. This would list any kids, this section, where the agency billing record had a start date after the end date, which makes no sense whatsoever. So here is a kid with a start date after the end date. So you can click this view button, go out and fix that kid before you run your reports. So it's an extremely useful data error checking tool. Highly recommend. Whether you're invoicing or not on Child Tracks, or paying foster parents or not on Child Tracks, run this once a month. It can find some of the most simplistic data entry errors that people make. So very, very nice tool. Then the last one is billing invoice comparison. I won't run this. I'm going to tell you what it does real fast. So you put in your date range, just like all the other ones I just showed you. It's going to go out and it's going to look at the placement table, and it's going to find any kids that was placed in that date range. Then it's going to go look at the invoice records, and it's going to return those. And then it's going to go look, if you're using our reconciliation module, it's going to go look at the reconciliation module and make sure what the system says you invoiced is what you're actually reconciling, right? Because sometimes people start doing things over in reconcile module and they're not doing it in agency billing, and vice versa. So, or they change agency billing after reports was ran, then go out and fix the reconcile module. So that's just a tool to fix that. Okay, I'm out of breath. I'm tired. Talk fast, but I'm going to unmute everybody and we can have a discussion. So thank you all for being on the webinar. And don't forget next month's webinar, we actually have one of our executive directors going to do a 30-minute presentation on foster care, residential partners, services partners. If you want to be part of that, you'll get the invite. Please join us. So, any questions? Now, if you have yourself muted, I can't unmute you if you have yourself unmuted if somebody's trying to ask a question and I'm not answering. So it's because I don't hear you.